One of the sponsors has been with us from the beginning is our friends out in North Carolina, Highland Canine at Tactical Police Canine, letter K number 9, training.com. They are full service from top to bottom, left to right, north, south, east to west. They have everything, pointy ears, floppy ears, whatever you want. And they are a full service kennel doing seminars as well as handler schools for completed dogs and as well as green dogs. So be sure to hit them up, Highland Canine at tacticalpolicecaninetraining.com. The Fergusons are fantastic people. Jason's been on the podcast as well, so go look up his episode.
Our one of my favorite sponsors is Dogtra. The folks over at dogtra.com. They've been doing this for a long time, guys. Their e-collars, bark collars, everything they do, we love it. We have a great relationship with them. They give a discount code WDR10 for 10% off any single item over $200. I tell everybody I have a kennel full of Dogtra e-collars. Most importantly, I have a kennel full of Dogtra bark collars. The YS600 to me is the best piece of equipment in all of dogs. Check them out, dogtra.com. Check them out on Instagram at dogtraofficial.
We really like the guys at Ray Allen Manufacturing. They've been around for freaking ever. They were making working dog equipment before there were working dogs for working bison, apparently. So, and their product designer is one of our favorite people, Matt Wilson. We love Matt. So rayallen.com. And everyone thinks, it's only for police and military dogs. And that's not the case. If you have a working dog, whether it's police and military or search and rescue or even hunting, and even if you got pets, they have literally everything minus the dog and the patrol car that you would need to outfit a working team or a pet team for anything, whether it be scent work, whether it be AKC or UKC scent work, all the way up to explosive and narcotics detection for military and police teams and everything in between. So be sure to hit them up at rayallen.com. Use the discount code Working Dog Radio spelled out for 10% off your order.
Absolutely, not even probably. Our first sponsor and longest sponsor is Arno over at ALM. Probably, to me anyways, one of the best guys in all canine. His website, almcanineequipment.com. You can get on there, give him a call, email him. He's the only guy you're going to talk to. almcanineequipment.com. He has easily the best tugs in the business. His bite suits are amazing. They last for a long time. Ted will tell you he's got the same jacket since Noah threw the ark out there. And his hidden sleeve, I still say, is the best in the business. Check him out. Use a discount code WD Radio, all spelled out, 10% off your first order. Check him out on Instagram, ALM Canine Equipment.
Horizon Structures. If you need a one-stop shop, so basically you call these guys, you tell them what you need, it gets dropped off at your location, you plug the water in and the electricity in, and you can put dogs in it that day. They have everything from 2 dog kennels all the way up to a massive 40-foot long one that can house, I think, 16, if I remember correctly, and that's indoor, outdoor with a feed room and everything in between. They've got something to fit every budget as well. Be sure to hit them up at horizonstructures.com and look for the commercial dog kennel section of the website, and it'll give you everything you need. They have multiple options for doors, flooring, plumbing, electricity. They even have an option for solar if you're in a portion of the country that's not gray like it is here right now. So if you have an option for that, you're lucky. So hit them up, horizonstructures.com. Get yourself set up and start selling dogs today. All right, we are back. Working Dog Radio, broadcasting the bite. I am Ted Summers from the tundra of fucking Oklahoma right now. It's not as cold as where Eric's at, but this is the coldest it's been here since 1983. This sucks. So with me as always is Eric Stambro from Canton, Ohio. Eric, what's up?
You are correct. It is cold as shit here. We are 2 weeks into a cold. Usually at Ohio, man, you get 3 or 4 days and then it breaks and then it kind of melts everything. And then we're in the 30s and we're single digits or teens and 20s now for 2 straight weeks. I looked, it's not supposed to get any warmer.
Yeah.
I'm working up a couple green dogs for the class that starts March 1st. And listen, I do tracking in the cold, that's not a problem. But beginning brand new dogs, it's a little difficult. And tonight's really bad. When we're done with this, I have to go back to the kennel and put everybody to bed. And that's about 8 minutes drive, which will probably be 15 minutes tonight. My wife just got home a little bit ago. She says 20 miles an hour. So
we had to
crappy.
Blow the lines down, so we have no running water at the kennel, and or floating food. And I mean, it's like, what's the nice thing is all the turds are frozen, which is cool. So that's easy to clean. But I mean, it's, we're supposed to be, I think Saturday and Sunday it's supposed to be 6. Then wind chill on Friday or on Monday morning is supposed to be, or Sunday morning is supposed to be negative 38.
Wow.
So yeah. So looking forward to that,
which is a big deal.
Yeah, fucking God bless. So I'm working. I'm still working. I'm still, we're tracking and doing some other stuff. And this green dog, little Jack, the one that came, and I got to put him in the car today because he lives outside and he's in the kennel in the back of my car, and obviously the heat's on. And I opened the door to get him out, and he's like, "No, I ain't getting out." I had to reach in there and grab him. I was like, "Get your ass out the fucking car. Let's go. We're gonna go track, dude." He's like, "No, I'm good, fam. We're not doing anything today." No. So he went and tracked. And of course, I got Pepper. I got those 2 labs too that I'm still working. So Jack and Castle, Floppy Jack and Castle. So they're rocking and rolling. So, and I've got some green dogs coming from our buddy out in Connecticut here pretty quick. So,
cool.
Yeah, some dual purpose dogs. So outside of that, what do we got going on tonight?
So tonight we are continuing on with our Australian series. We have a good buddy over there who has recommended some pretty solid guests to us for this little series. We had one guy on, and then we had a gap where it was just me and you bitching about a lot of stuff.
Right. And
then we had Pat Stewart on, for those of you who would have already seen it by the time this episode comes out. The guys from the Canine Paradigm. Pat Stewart did not know that everybody over here just calls him Pat Stew. I was surprised by that.
Yeah,
shocked.
Yeah.
He's like, "Really?" I go, "Yeah, no."
Nobody knows your actual last name, bro.
He said, "You need to buy that get on GoDaddy and buy that domain name." Right. So we wanted to keep with it. Our first guest was more on the sports side. Pat's been a little bit of both, having been in the military. But tonight we wanted to get into more of the law enforcement working dog side and the tactical canine side of it in Australia, and kind of see how that all came about. So with us is our friend Ben Richards. Ben, how are you, buddy?
Yeah, good, Ted. Eric, how's yourselves?
We're good. It's a 16-hour difference, I think. So it's 8:59 p.m. So you're coming up on noon over there?
Yeah, we're coming up midday. I just noticed our temperature over here is at 30 degrees Celsius with about 100% humidity.
Sounds like magic.
Yeah, so Ted and I are wearing hoodies. Do you guys even own hoodies in over where
it gets cold there?
Yeah. Best place in the country in winter. Summer is horrendous over here.
It gets cold there, right? I mean, like down.
Yeah, not too bad. It doesn't drop below probably 18 degrees, I reckon. Yeah. Celsius.
Yeah, because the United States were.
You both can stop talking now because I'm so sick and angry over this. I was today at the kennel at about 5:30, breaking dogs. So before I fed them and everything, and I was sitting there coming up with the whole pitch to my wife to move. Can we please move out of here? And I know the answer because we have a daughter in college that's an hour and a half away, and we got to wait, and she's only a freshman, so we're kind of screwed. But gosh, dang it, man. The cold is, I used to run marathons. I always ran spring marathons, so I trained in the winter. The winter's the reason I stopped running marathons, and I liked it. I'm just over it, man. I'm tired of wearing Carhartts and look like a firefighter turnout gear and layers and all that other crap. But anyways, enough of that. So Ben, let's talk about, tell everybody who you are and kind of a little bit of your history and what led us up to today.
Yeah. Ted and Eric, I'm attached to the Special Emergency Response Team, the tactical group within Queensland, Australia. I'm currently a sergeant with that unit. with that, we have a canine cell. The program is constantly evolving every year. We've just ramped it up. Only last year, we ran our first inaugural tactical working dog course, myself and another lad, Senior Constable Leonard. So it's quite exciting times for us at the minute, pushing into that, that professional realm with the tactical working dogs. The program itself obviously initiated, it was probably 15 years ago, by the name of Sean Chapman. And we've just constantly evolved from that point. And now with the support of our SF friends here in Australia, we've got a program and a template I think we're happy with. Our dogs, we're only currently evolving slowly. We've got 2 dogs and 1 in development at the minute. So 1 in Brisbane, 1 in Cairns. So the unit's split because Queensland's such a large state. So our dogs are dual handled. Cooter, the one in Brisbane. So we have 2 handlers that handle 1 dog. Unfortunately, we deal with a command structure where they want to constantly prove the concept, because obviously dogs cost a lot of money. The program costs a lot of money to run with equipment, and it's got to be shared amongst other portfolios. So, but anyway, the long and the short of it is we had to reset, and we've added this into our program now. And I think we're going in good stead, especially with the new dog. The next dog will be Generation 3. Both the Cairns dog and he will have odor detection imprinted in on them. So plus all the other capabilities that we allow in the dogs or create into the dogs. I originally started with the police in '99. Started with CERT in 2002, and then basically went just as an operator for X amount of years, and then I went out, had a break and I went and become a GP handler, which is a general purpose dog handler in Mackay, Queensland. I did 3 years there just as a operational handler, and then I went back to CERT. Did a stint back on the tools as just an operator, and then I went as a CERT dog handler, and that's when we started looking at evolving our program and push to where we are today. So, yeah, we're in good stead. It's a constant battle, as everyone knows, with canine programs, but I think we're looking good for the future. So, yeah, that's it.
So when you got on the department and were doing, just regular patrol duties, was getting on CERT, was that a dream? Was that a thing? Did you know before you got hired that was one of your goals?
So you go through, obviously, academy, and then you just go as a general copper. I didn't really have the aspirations to join CERT. So obviously it's quite a vigorous selection process, like all other PDGs and your SWATs, I suppose, over in the States. So I didn't have any aspirations at that point. And then one of my mates said, I'm going for selection. So I thought, I'll have a crack. And then, basically from there, 2002, I joined the unit and went from there. So you go in there for a little bit, you come out, you're doing working a dog in the regular police. Tell us about that dog. Yeah, so when I joined, I just had a break from CERT for a couple of years, and I did the GP component, which is the general purpose dog handling, which is based out of Brisbane, but we have regional dog teams that cover the whole state, whether that's a 2-man section or a 4-man, depending on where you are. But in Mackay, there was 2 of us, and myself and Marcus Hahn, which is my OIC. And basically, we just run the dog. We're on call, so you'll do 8 on, 6 off, and we're on call whilst we're on those 8 days. We only work 8-hour shift or a 10-hour shift, and then we're on call the following hours until the other bloke relieves us when we go on our 6 days off. So Mackay was a busy little hub, a lot of call-outs, a lot of tracks, a lot of good crooks there, like high-level crooks. So I've got a real good, solid baseline for tracking. I had a really solid dog too, really high drive. He was like a shepherd in a Malinois body. So It was good. And I learned a hell of a lot in relation to tracking, urban, suburban, rural, cane, everything with that dog. So it was more of a hunting canine, but did a lot of work getting his nose down on track and aging track and various surfaces. But he was on song in the end.
So the last interview we did, we talked to Pat and Glenn about, they kind of enlightened us as to, I mean, I realize Australia is like a giant island, and you guys have some pretty stringent laws about getting dogs into the country. So what were some of the challenges like for dog selection, or I guess even currently now, like you guys said, you're on Gen 3. What are the challenges like for, getting your GP dog, but then now getting your SF dogs or, your CERT dogs into the country, or are they homegrown, or where do they come from? And what does that process look like? Because where Eric and I are at, we just call a vendor and they ship them. It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, that's a good point. We do. So we try to get homegrown dogs. We don't import, obviously. We allow the vendors to do that, or the breeders to do that. We have some close ties with vendors across Australia that produce decent working lines. So currently the dog we have in Brisbane, he's about 5 years old. So Cooter, we've bred off him, and so the dog, the TWD we have up here, which is a tactical working dog, Cairns, it's his prodigy. So we know that the dog itself has proven multiple times over. So we try and keep to the working lines, so then we know that the dog, we've ticked that box, and we're sort of guaranteed a point where we know the dog will work on the road under pressure. So, but to answer your question, Ted, yeah, we try and do all homegrown stuff. There are some good breeders here. We don't do shepherds in CERT. We do males. I know the GP world, they use shepherds. They are a lot more hardier with the tracking side of it, a bit more stable compared to a mal. But for what we need, the Malinois, they're on song every day of the week for the high drive, high agility work that we do.
So going back to when you were working the GP dog, so over here you have kind of two schools based on the size of your department and how busy they are and what they want to do. You have the guys that are just cops with a dog in the back of the car, and they have to handle accidents, DUIs, every other bullshit call that comes in. Then you have guys like my department that don't handle those calls. They handle canine calls. Yeah, they got to go to some domestics. Anything that's going to have some violence in it, they go to those. But we don't typically do too many reports, and we don't handle any accidents. How did it work for you in Queensland there, just as a regular GP handler?
Yeah, so we could choose what jobs we go to depending on the task or the actual offence being committed. So, yeah, the canine handlers, they will be tasked. Generally, they can go and do disturbances, support the frontline police, but generally they'll attend to anything related to dog potential runners, a less lethal component that you use that canine in. So they can pick and choose to a point depending on the commanding officer, what they want at the ultimately. But yeah, we don't have a comms section just allocated to the dogs. It all go through one comms center, and then the boys and girls just sift out what jobs are going to be suitable and where they're going to potentially have a win. With the dog.
So I do like to ask guys when they worked a dog a long time ago. So you had this high-speed shepherd doing tracking. You obviously like the way he worked and that. What did you dislike about that dog?
To be honest, I didn't have a lot of dislikes. He matched my personality. So, he had a really good work ethic. The dog would constantly just keep hunting. Like I remember we were doing a track, like I was tracking a stolen car which had crashed into the cane, and I think we were out on track for 4 hours. And at the end he ended up locating I think 3 of the 4 targets. So, and there's other times where I've been on track for one. I think it was just like a 6-hour period, and then we got a couple of bites on that job, so which was good for him. Rewarded his solid behaviour. So that in the long and the short of it, we try, and I didn't notice any weaknesses that he had, apart from he was a bit of a hunting dog, so he wasn't a footstep tracker like some of the really good GP shepherds are. But I liked it because he got me to the end quite quickly, you know what I mean, and closed the gap between me and the target quite quickly. Whereas we have the opposite philosophy in the tactical working dogs. We like to slow the track down a bit. It's just a walking pace so the other operators can support that handler effectively. You know, they do an all-round defence, fire and move, the constant disruption to the dog tracking, but the dog is used to that type of method. So, we do a little bit different method of tracking speed-wise, but overall it's generally still high drive compared to what Tons of my first dog was.
Yeah, we had actually one of my buddies on here a couple episodes, well, more than a couple, like 5 or 6 episodes ago, from our local sheriff's department that is a human tracker that is fantastic. And, kind of off mic, we were talking about the difference between, tactical tracking and like a patrol track like you're talking about. But so once you finish, GP, has a general purpose handler, and you move into being an operator, you sort of like kind of help develop the program or at the foundation of it. So what was the administration, or can you talk about how it was sold? And it's like, did you have to go to the team guys and say, hey, we really do need to use the dog? And then you go to the administrators and it's like, look, this is why we need them. And, without getting into a lot of the specifics of what they do, what they can and can't do, and the capabilities and everything else. But what was that? What was that like? The only reason I ask is because I think that this comment is going to be pretty similar to the United States, where you have a very successful SWAT team or special operations team, whatever you want to call them here, and depending on where you're at. And a lot of these dudes, like, one of their first things they say is, well, I don't need a dog. Or we're going to, the dogs are dickheads or whatever. Every time I work around a dog, motherfucker tries to bite me or some bullshit. And so what was that process like of being like, oh, I was a general purpose handler, and then I became an operator, and now I'm going to be an operator with a dog, and you guys got to deal with it. So what does that look like over there?
Yeah, so originally the dogs that we had were just glorified GP dogs. They didn't really have any advancements in their capabilities. So they were basically land sharks that were really highly strung and had to have a lot of control put on them by the handlers. My cert dog that I had, PD Costa, land shark, dog aggressive. I had so many issues with him when it started ramping up, breaches, all that sort of stuff on entry points. And then to the point where he, redirected on me because he was frustrated because he couldn't get in there and do the job. So it's been a constant battle since pretty much myself and another operator sergeant, Denny Hess. We went over to we work with the SF group and had a really good look at their system and their capabilities. That was in 2014. So then we brought it back, the concept brought back to CERT in Queensland, and we had a lot of naysayers. And to be honest, you're always going to get it because, unfortunately, canines cost money, and you don't always. And our command, a police unit costs money. That's just it. And they always try and look at saving costs and all that sort of stuff. And sometimes canines, bang for buck, you don't always get it depending on how good your handlers are. So I reckon that's another sideline issue. But we had a lot of pushback in relation to the application of the canines in CERT. So we had to expand on the capabilities, and from our glorified GP dogs. And that's why the SF team really supported us with the expansion of our capabilities. You know, we do off lead out fronts with the control of the e-collar. You know, now we're implementing odor into the new Gen 3 dogs, which is just explosive detection. We've hit on 5 odors. That's a progressive evolutionary capability that we're still working on. But generally the dogs now are high level, but they have solid IFF within the team environment, and listen to basically any of the operators when required. And I suppose that is the difference, and that's where we're constantly having to sell the program, getting those dogs out there in the limelight to be noticed and go, well, hey, this is an effective tool and capability. Let's keep pushing on. We've had some negatives in Gen 2 where the dogs have bitten operators accidentally, not, you know, whether it's nighttime ops or whatever. And it's, you know, unfortunately that happens. You can't avoid that, but we try and avoid it. Why now we're integrating the dogs constantly into our training programs and making them part of the team. So the boys are confident and on task that they're doing their jobs and the dogs are doing their jobs. So we have had a lot of change, a lot of pushback, but I think we're pushing now with the program that we've got. We've got TWD Handler course 1.1. I'm pushing now. The next part will be 1.2, which will include the tracking component. The tracking component was done through the dog squad, the general purpose dog squad, but now we'll take carriage of that and put it within our tactical working dog handlers course. It's a bit of a long-winded answer. I apologise for that. It's just
that's actually it was perfect.
Yeah,
I suspected that's what you were going to say, and that's why I asked you.
Is there a big dick contest between training at CERT and the GP trainers that have been doing it for a while?
To be honest, I don't know what the GP. So I'm sure there'll be naysayers there. You know, they sort of this and that. You're always going to get that no matter what environment you're in. But we try and stick to ourselves because the boys have got a lot of skill sets to maintain, including the dogs. So to be honest, they don't really get time to listen to the crap that is carried on outside of the section. And if there is, we just make sure that the boys are on song with their skills and their standards to prove the naysayers wrong. You know, that's how we do it. On the ground is where we make the difference and show up our knockers, I suppose.
Yeah, that's good. It's if people stay in their lane a lot, that'd be pretty nice. It'd be nice for people to do that everywhere. It'd be pretty good. So, yeah, there's always going to be that inner. You guys are technically in the same department. There's always going to be kind of that thing. We're going to go ahead and take our first break. We have some really good sponsors, guys. Don't fast forward through it. Make sure you check on the show notes, get the discount codes, and we'll be back with guest number 3, Ben, of our Australian series. We'll be right back. So sorry to interrupt the great conversation we are having, but we have amazing sponsors that we need to bring to you. One of our favorites, one of our oldest, is Southern Coast Canine. The folks down there, the Heisers, they are great folks down there in New Smyrna, Florida, right? They got everything you need to do down there, guys. Full service kennel. SouthernCoastCanine.com. Give them a call, 877-903-DOGS. The Southern Coast Canine folks have killer dogs, guys. Everyone we've seen have been badass. Check them out on Instagram at Southern Coast Canine.
Everybody knows that training is super important. One of the best training conferences in the country is HITS. It's by canine handlers for canine handlers. HITS Canine, letter K, number 9.net. The largest vendor show in the country, the largest giveaway for handlers in the country, and some of the most skilled instructors in the country, plus Eric and I. We're going to be there July 6th through the 9th in Scottsdale, Arizona, bringing the HRD Roadshow to everyone there, doing the presentation about scenario-based training. And then they've got everybody there from the industry to do fantastic presentations. Also, classifies and certify for your training hours when you come back to your department. So it's going to be in Scottsdale, Arizona, July 6th to the 9th. be sure to hit up Jeff Barrett, 863-529-5113, or hits Canine, letter K number 9.net.
The other big thing that guys mess around with and don't get right is nutrition for their dogs. Our good friends down at Kinetic Dog Food, they got it right. Especially if you own a kennel. Like there's all kinds of problems that go along with owning a kennel with a lot of dogs, kennel stress and things. These guys are great. They service some of the largest kennels in the country. KineticDogFood.com. Their stuff is so good. Give them a call, 513-615-6904. Kinetic Dog Food on Instagram. Wonderful people, wonderful food. Check them out, KineticDogFood.com.
Next up, we have a sponsor that's moved us for quite a while, Quick Derm by Vet Care. This stuff is magic. For whatever reason, working dogs have this uncanny ability to hurt themselves in fantastic and magical ways. Don't let small problems be big ones. Happy tail, torn up paws. One of our good buddies and also one of our interviews, Jake Hutchinson, had his dog got kicked in the face by a horse. The stitches were healed up very quickly with Vet Care. I use it on my tattoos. Alicia just got a new one and she's using it as well. Stuff is magic. So hit them up at vetcare.us. Use the discount code 10WDR for 10% off your first order. Awesome stuff.
Our brand new sponsor, guys, and he's a good dude, man. He really is a good dude, good trainer. He's been on the podcast, friend of ours. He's worked with us at HRD, great decoy. Jim O'Brien down at NC Canine in North Carolina. Obviously, NC stands for North Carolina. NC Canine, letter K number 9. Great stuff, guys. Their police dogs are good. Floppy ear, pointy ear, dual purpose, single purpose, handler schools, better weather than we have in Ohio. Give him a call, 919-438-0141. Check out his website, nccanine.us. Hit him up on Instagram at nccaninellc. For them, guys, training is not a job. It is their life. All right, everybody, we are back. Working Dog Radio, broadcasting the Bite. The continuing on the Australian series, we're getting into the special operations police side, tactical unit stuff with the dog. Was there something that happened, like one particular incident that spawned the discussion of bringing the dogs in? Or was like, hey, this went wrong, or this could have been handled differently had we had a dog? Sometimes there's an event that's a catalyst for change like that.
The biggest change for us, so we never had a dog up until a year and a half ago in Cairns. So Cairns is the little brother to the Brisbane cert, which is our capital city in Queensland. So it took a lot of years to be able to push the dog side of it and that capability, because we've only got 2 teams up here in Cairns compared to Brisbane where they got 4. The dog is a vital support structure to our capabilities and basically containment and that expansion of skill sets. Because we don't have the numbers, that dog makes up for 2 or 3 operators that can potentially take out the target in a less lethal capacity. So how we've tried to push that with our unit, and obviously the command is the one that we have to sell because they're the one that signed the checks. I think Senior Constable Leonard, when he was running CUDA in Brisbane, so he's only just recently transferred up to Cairns, we had a really good win by doing an exercise on the Gold Coast, and he'll probably elaborate more on this, but basically we had they used the drones, they used a lot of other capabilities which failed, and they were doing it was multiple hostage, multiple targets, civilian hostages, blah, 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 down in the Gold Coast in one of the major shopping centres. And he utilised the canine where, it was a hostage rescue, so I was muzzled up. He nailed, I think it was 2 tangos, 2 role-play tangos, saved a number of hostages. And from that point, and the control that he had on that dog through that fight through of that structure or building, the command then saw the benefit of that canine and the evolution of where we were to where we are going to be. And I think that was a big seller for us and in relation to pushing the capability forward into that next gen, and getting the command on side supporting us financially. Because at the end of the day, we have the knowledge base here. We just don't have unfortunately, every jurisdiction has financial issues. So, and funds are shared between multiple portfolios. So we just have to take a little bit of pie and try and work with what we can with the money we've got.
In the tactical unit that you're in, without getting into tactics, what do you see? So again, here you have some full-time SWAT teams. It's probably, what did you say, Ted? 1% of SWAT teams in this country, maybe 1% of them are full-time. The rest are just part-time guys, right? They work regular patrol.
Yeah.
Detectives and whatever. So the dogs, if they have a dog tied to their team, it's very rare. It's a patrol dog like we were talking about in the past. And they use them for perimeter containment mostly, if they use them at all. I was on the SWAT team for 14 and a half years. At one point, there were 4 handlers on the team. We never used the dogs, ever. I think we were busy. We were doing a call out a week. And I think I probably used my dog 3 times in 14 and a half years on the team, 3 times. And it was always on perimeter. And in Ohio, we have basements. Going down basement steps is dangerous. It sucks, man. And if you end up being the basement crew, you get your guy behind you and he's squeezing, you're like, all right, here we go. And you just haul ass as fast as you can down the steps. So, because there's this fear the guy's going to be behind the steps and shoot you with his pistol. So what do you see optimally in the way you guys work things is the right usage of the dog for the tactical stuff?
We used to have a misconception. Well, it's not a misconception. We utilized the canines when I first started in CERT as a containment black roll, squirters out the rear of the properties. So, and they always used to get thrown that bone, like hopefully that we get a runner. So the change that we're trying to create with our new capabilities and expansion within the dog, within the team, is that the dog is in the entry. He's not sitting on a containment position. He's Johnny on the spot. He's hooked onto a tether to the handler, gone through clearing the building or the structure or whatever it is, and then when required, he's untethered and sent forward to clear rooms, structures, areas. Because obviously with our canines, we have cameras. They're being placed on their backs or on their harnesses. So boys can send a dog forward and basically clear the objective in without putting themselves in harm's way. So that's the beauty of the canine. So we've just got it's just a teaching or a changing people's mindset of the application of the canine. Like, yeah, you're pushing him forward. Potentially he could get shot, but that's his GF for him. That's what I look. And if he gets shot, yep, he'll get a bowl at the bar or whatever, but it's saved one operator or two, potentially 2 operators from getting whacked. That's how I see the canines. They're a force multiplier by closing the gap between us and the targets. And I think that's the effective way of using them. It's just amazing. Basically changing mindsets, really, in people's past interactions with canines. So, and that's why we go through a fairly vigorous process with our selection of canines, so they actually can work closely with the teams. We're not getting that friendly fire. They're solid IFF. And the boys are comfortable and can do their job without having to worry about if that canine's going to tag them or not.
So during your selection process, since those dogs are generally homegrown for a multitude of reasons, what does that look like? Are the dogs a little bit older? And like, how was the selection process go? And when we go through this conversation, because you're also a NePoPo guy, we'll kind of like bleed into a little bit of that. But so what, in terms of both dog and handler selection, like what does that look like for you guys?
So there's only probably myself and Senior Constable Leonard are probably the developers that develop our canines within our unit. I do a little bit of other stuff in my private time with the SF units, but how we we look at it. I try to include as many people as I can for the selection process, because ultimately you're picking a dog that, you're putting 18 months into, and you don't want to come to that time and he's going to fail on you. So we constantly doing milestone assessments every 3 months throughout the development program. But yeah, the initial selection, I use blokes like Canine Solutions Australia. Some of the blokes from SF units that I work closely with, I get them to support the selection, because it is a bit of a pressure cooker, if you don't get the right dog, or you're not seeing something, or some blokes have got more experience than others in that selection. I think that's the important part. Don't do it by yourself. The more eyes, the better it is, because then they're seeing something that you're missing, or, they might have picked up something in a past canine that, is showing up in the potential litter that you're looking at. So that's how we do that puppy selection. And obviously we're relying on the breeder or the vendor too to support that. We try and get vendors that are honest, and we work closely with, because I know if they're not honest with us, then we don't use them again. And that's, it's constantly, if they're getting a dog to us and it goes op or operational, that's a big win in their, feather in their cap. So they want to make sure that these dogs are successful, and they try and make the genetics successful too. So, but that's the selection process of the puppies. We always start at 8 weeks or 10 weeks for our dogs, because unfortunately there's not a lot of people out there that can train the capability that we want, and then integrate it into the team environment to make sure that capability fits in with our support structures around the unit.
Yeah, and you mentioned something earlier, and I didn't say anything, but you guys breed the working dogs, which in the United States is a no-no here, and Eric can talk about it too, but I've seen department policies that strictly forbid breeding of a dog, which is the stupidest thing in the world. We spend all this money importing these bad motherfuckers all the way from Holland or wherever they're from, and then they just go off into the ether and work, and that's it, right? Like, so you have, multiple years of generations of genetics built into making this badass dog, and then it just stops because some dickhead with stripes on his sleeve is like, oh, that's a bad idea, we can't do that, it looks bad. And then they're like, and now it's 2021 and people are like, oh, there's no dogs available in Europe. And I'm like, oh, well, you know why, right? We bought them all and we didn't breed them. So it's interesting because, you guys you start out at a puppy, right? Like here, Eric and I were talking about it before you got on, like guys, we sell what we hear, we call them green dogs, and everybody is pushing the age of green dogs one direction or the other. And the dogs seem to be ready for this and ready for that. And departments have truncated timelines, and the dogs have to be ready in, 6, 8, 10, 12 weeks, however, just super short time frames. So it sounds like you aren't working on, you're putting 18 months into a dog. But for me personally, right? So I'll buy a green dog from Holland. He gets shipped in, and when he gets in, he doesn't know how to track. He's got no odor. He can probably bite a sleeve and a suit. And I've got 10 to 16 weeks to get him to a point where he is done and ready to go find people and find drugs or bombs. And it sounds like you guys have started the puppy stage and, get through the process. And I think some of that is because of where you're at. But yeah, breeding, and it's something that Eric and I, and, we had, Mike Ritland on, and we had, Mike Suttle on, and, advocated for that because both of those guys have imported some bangers, and, they just go off into the sunset and we never hear from them again because they are police dogs or whatever. So, because of that, and I want you to kind of drive home the point that, you get a lot out of raising that dog in its working environment, and how much of a portion of the success of that is to the program. Like how successful or how good is that to the success of the program, I guess is what I'm saying.
I think, and obviously, like I've done the butt, vellum, silver and gold. Bart always talks about, the dog's mother language and all that sort of stuff. So from day dot, we create a mother language that integrates into our system or our program. So then the dog, with starting the dog at a young age, he's basically becoming part of the pack at that age. So then he knows exactly whose dad's mates are. We'll always have one master developer or one developer, but that dog is constantly integrating with the team every day, or if not, at least once or twice a week, depending on his age. The things that I like from doing from 8 to 10 weeks is that you can iron out all those little deficiencies. You're getting a green dog from a supplier or vendor at, 12 months, and then you put your little tweak on it. Realistically, that probably has to happen that way if you're a bigger section, or like at the minute we've only got 2 dogs, like Brisbane Cairns, and 1 in development. So we will have to eventually go down that path. But I suppose with the sideline business I'm doing, I obviously develop SF dogs. So the boys assess their milestones every 3 months. So we have a program, and I have standards that those dogs need to constantly meet every 3 months, and basically all the their requirements under their training program or package that they must meet, like OB and all that sort of stuff. So I understand that those boys don't get time to train. At the minute, we have blokes here that we can train, so it works for us. Ultimately, that won't happen in the future because you're going to lose that skill set over time. Blokes are going to move on, blah, blah, blah. So I think integrating the dogs into the teams early definitely creates that bond, that pack mentality between the operators and the dog. But I understand too that it's not always going to work depending on the size of the section, how many dogs you're going to roll through. The second part of your question, with us, we look at, so we've got 2 blokes in Brisbane dual handling one of the TWDs and 2 blokes up here. So we look at, like one of the blokes up here was as green as, like never really handled a dog. And it's not so much that we're looking for. It's that ability to learn quickly, his ability to work under pressure and be able to problem solve. That's really how we look at our handler selection. You know what I mean? They're not the best on the field, but they have great work ethic, because obviously dogs, you're going to have to do a shit ton of hours outside to be able to maintain or expand that skill set. So we choose people that, we know are going to put the hours in, because otherwise, if they don't, the standard of the dog is going to be quite low, and he's going to potentially fail on our program. And then, we're going to have a loss, and then the bosses are going, well, what's the point of having this program? It's costing us X amount of money. So we're constantly looking and evolving with that side of it, but we also have to look at who we put behind the dogs to make sure that they've got really good work ethic and are quite got the smarts to be able to adjust to problems that they'll see every day in the dogs.
I was listening to an episode of Police Canine Radio a couple episodes ago, and they had a guy on there. It was pretty interesting. They had a guy on there who does the dogs for the conservation. Ted and I had a guy on. This guy's a little bit different, tracking people, doing apprehensions, kind of in more of the real dangerous parts of Africa. And they were talking to him about his handler selection. I found this interesting. I might try this too, is maybe not even so much for handler selection, because now in the private industry, I get who the agency sends, right? That's who. So I don't even get much say. I've had one department ask me to sit in on the interviews. But he has them come in, and there's, all tests and interviews and physical stuff and all that. But he has this thing where he has the 2 guys come in, say there's down to 2 candidates. They have 2 guys come in to a room. One has a clicker. He's told that he is to try to get the other guy to sit on the countertop or something similar. And then the other guy is told, come in the room and figure it out. See what this guy wants you to do. And he doesn't know at first that he has a clicker. So what they end up doing is they end up picking the guy who seemed to get it better, to get the meaning and the timing of the clicker. And then the guy who doesn't know anything with the clicker, he's like, what the fuck's this guy clicking for? Okay, hot, cold, that type of thing. I found it to be super interesting. And they said actually it's really works out really well. Little kind of brain games and things like that. And by the time they're done with that, and when they, because those guys help a little bit with the training and, early on, then the guy already, oh, this is why we did this. This is why we had this clicker in the test. I thought that part was pretty interesting. You could come up with all kinds of dick, brain games and messing with people that all have a point to it, I think.
I know Bart does that on the silver, doesn't he? He uses the clicker and shapes its behaviour with just the students. And that's actually quite an interesting way of pushing the selection process for your applicants. I think that's quite very, very valid, like problem solving, utilising someone that doesn't know anything, which the dog is.
Ted would use the clicker to bring the guy in and teach him to go to the fridge and bring him a beer.
100%.
You're in. You're in.
No shame. There's an episode of The League if for the Americans. Well, and maybe in Australia, I don't know. But there's a comedy show on. I think it's on Comedy Central. I don't remember, but there's there's an episode where they're all college friends and they all have like a fantasy football league. And every time he clicks a pin like that, the other one goes, "Do you want a beer?" And he's like, "Yeah." So the entire episode, he literally just clicks it, and like this guy's wife looks across the room. She's like, "What the fuck? How did you get him to do that?" He's like, "I got really bored when I was in college." And so 15 years later, every time he double clicks the pin, he's like, "You want a beer?" And he finally is like, "Why do I keep asking if you want a beer?" He's like, "I have no idea."
Yeah.
I have zero shame to that.
There's like 3 episodes of The Office where Jim does that to Dwight.
Yeah. All right. We're going to take a break real quick, and then we'll be back. So don't fast forward through these.
Working Dog Radio, we love our sponsors. This episode is sponsored in part by Ray Allen at rayallen.com. Everything for dogs. Check out their 10% discount code using Working Dog Radio, all caps, rayallen.com for everything dogs.
Be sure to check out Dogtra also. Eric and I love Dogtra. It's what we both use at the kennel each day. I like the 1900S. Be sure to check them out at dogtra.com. Use the discount code WDR10 for 10% off any single item over $200.
Are you going to the HITS Canine this year, guys? The biggest and best conference in the United States, July 6th to the 9th, Scottsdale, Arizona. HitsCanine.net. Give Jeff Baird a call, 863-529-5113.
Making sure you have the right dog food is a super important part of running a working dog, whether it be police dogs, military dogs, or hunting dogs, or search and rescue. We like Kinetic Dog Food. The guys at Kinetic can be found at kineticdogfood.com. Area code 513-615-6904. Hit them up.
We got a brand new sponsor, our good buddy Jim O'Brien down at NC Canine in North Carolina. Full service kennel, police dogs, single purpose, dual purpose, handler schools, trainer schools. Check them out, nccanine.us.
Last but certainly not least is Horizon Structures. If you want a one-stop shop, drop it off and put dogs in it and ready to rock, hit them up, horizonstructures.com/commercial-dog-kennels. Horizon Structures will be able to hook you up. All right, we're back. Covered some of the selection stuff for the handlers and for the dogs, and then covered a little bit of some of the training stuff, and we started kind of delving into some of the problem solving. So, you guys raise the puppies, or at the point that you're at now in your program, you're able to, which at my kennel at Torchlight, the dogs that we've had that are the most successful, the dogs that I got really, really, really young. A couple of them we've raised from puppies. Other ones we've got, 4 or something months old that are babies, and raised them. And one of them is a SWAT dog now. He is a fantastic example, but I raised him, right? He lived in my house, and, there's a lot of work and there's a lot that goes into that to be said. So that said, we do all this work, right? And then we turn him over to a dude that's like not a trainer. And and Eric kind of before the break talked about how they did that in some of those the anti-poaching dogs, about how, the clicker deal and how we go back and forth. So how, when you start selecting handlers for that process, are from day one, like, so you have you and one of the other constables, or like the guys that are helping train the dog. So how integrated is the handler in the process of training from 8 to 10 weeks old all the way through operational stuff?
So we call it OJT, so on the job training. So we try and get the handlers that are going to be taking on the dogs to support the developer with, just little things, OB, just understanding luring, shaping, classical operant conditioning, all those things that are covered off on the NePoPo system. They do once, like after the OJTs, they then push them onto the course, the tactical working dog course. So we've only run one, the inaugural one last year. Excuse me, which went for 4 weeks. We are expanding it to now 5 weeks, and we then go more into detail, but because we have a very strict timeline and it's condensed, they have to know it really well before they go on it, because we're going to be skipping over. We've got a lot of stuff to cover in that 4 weeks, including scenario-based skills and all this sort of stuff. So, the theory is really condensed, but it is passed over quite quickly. So that OJT side of it, which we'll start selecting a handler about 2 years out from replacement of the old handlers. So, yeah, so they'll do a stint on the dogs 4 years. So they'll, and this is all, it's evolving. So we'll probably test and adjust over time. But we look at giving the boys 4 years on the dog, and then they move out off the dog. They'll support in that instructor role. But 2 years out, we'll try and select or start looking at selecting a handler to replace the old handler. And then he can start integrating with those handlers, doing OJTs, scenario-based stuff, whether he becomes decoy, getting qualified as a decoy to support that bite development and all that sort of stuff. So that's sort of how we integrate our new handlers to replace our old, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you, when you get into the nuts, like really into the training, are you then non-operational? They pull you out? Or are you sitting there with the phone waiting, and you still got to go do ops?
Yeah. No, they leave us alone for that period, unless it's a massive job and they need numbers. But generally, they'll leave us alone on course. We're not on call during course. Only because the factors are we have so much, and everything's condensed down, and every day is like full on. We don't have the time to lose a bloke for a day, let alone half a day or a week. So yeah, they do leave us alone for that period.
So one thing I was going to ask you a while ago when we were talking about the use of the dogs and kind of where you see it. So, and we mentioned a little bit in Ohio, we have basements, Oklahoma, some basements, as some do, some don't. Places have trailers where guys hide, and there's always a few of the standard hiding places. In here, if they're in the basement, it's going to be behind the water heater, by the dryer, one of those types of things, in a crawl space down there. There's attics and things like that. Where, like, if you're doing a barricaded subject or a warrant service in Australia, based on the way the houses are built, where's your hiding spots you find?
Yeah, we don't have a lot of basements, obviously. That's not built into the structures of the residential homes up here. Probably roof spaces are probably a fairly significant one up here, and there's a bit of a risk throwing the dog up into roof spaces, obviously with electrical wiring and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I know the Victorian SOG had one bloke. He just concealed himself under a heap of bedding, and and basically the dog pushed over. He was indicating, and then eventually I think he did engage on the target, which the boys sort of paid off at the time. So the dog did do a really good job there. But I know Andrew's done a few roof spaces. He had one job in Brisbane, which I'll let him touch on when you speak to him. But old mate had like a cavity in behind like a dresser, I suppose, and in front it was like where people keep all their perfumes and all that sort of stuff. And behind this mirror was a like a little cavity with a door on it. So obviously they're trying to distract the dog with the perfumes and all that sort of stuff where old mate was concealed. And it wouldn't have been any bigger than like a little bar fridge, you know. So he did well to get himself in there. And it did actually quite well. The perfume did distract the dog. And there's a couple other things that threw the dog off the scent. And eventually it just looked out of place at the time. One of the operators ended up, I think, cracking that little closed space and finding old mate concealed in there. But that was probably a little bit of a tricky one for Andrew. But yeah, majority of the time it wrist spaces.
Yeah, that's about right. About right here. And you're right; those suck. Those are dangerous, man. I never liked them as a handler. We've had guys go up, put the dogs up there, and the guy fall through the ceiling.
That literally happened to us December 22nd, I think. Here, they had a guy that was he was on some high risk warrant or some bullshit. Some guy was shooting at cops and being an idiot, and he ran into a house, and then he ran into another house, and the neighbor said they saw him in there, and they ran through the house, couldn't find him. And, you know, they were about 100% sure he's in the attic. Dog comes in and 100% good. The handler's like, oh, he's up there. And the body cam is great because he says, the dog goes up and he's like, oh, yeah, no, he's definitely up there. And you hear him start screaming. And then the handler pops around the corner and the guy's hanging through the fucking drywall out of the ceiling. And he's being held up by his leg and the dog's got a hold of his arm. And they tag him with the e-collar and he outs him and he swan dives into the living room and rips all the shit out of the ceiling.
And the dog was doing him a favor.
I mean, you know, the handler hits him with the e-collar and he pops off and, you know, dude lands on his face and they're like, I told you. I mean, you didn't think, but yeah, no, those are fucking dangerous. That happens here. It's always a last resort thing. They used a pole cam before it. And I think that was the dog was the before they were going to gas it because people actually lived in the house and they didn't want to fucking tear it up and they weren't 100% sure he was up there and all this other shit. And then the dog ends up finding him. And so here we are. And of course the handler's wearing all of his shit on, his SWAT shit. So he can't fit through the hole. He can't get up there with the dog. And he's like, well, this is a shit sandwich. So yeah, but it ended up working out well, but yeah, we don't like doing those. We get a lot of them so here we have a lot of crawl spaces. So it's not a basement, but it's this, you know, I don't know. It's about this big
void space.
Yeah, you know, but below the foundation and shitheads hide in there all the time. And it's just plumbing and spiders. Fucking spiders. I'm out. Fuck. I'll let dogs bite me all day. I'm fucking spiders, especially in Australia. I told Pat too, I'd shoot a spider. Especially the ones you guys have down there. So, but for sure. So, Eric, you wanted to talk a little bit about the similarities and differences with some of the NePoPo stuff, right?
Yeah. So, over here, and I don't know about there, over here, and this is still kind of an epidemic. And I've talked about this a lot. You know, when I got into Canine in 2005, the guys that were the trainers, they didn't really use e-collars all that much. We had 9 dogs, and we had the e-collar and the prong collar. So if your dog wasn't outing or wasn't doing the call off or recall, go get the e-collar. It's probably not charged. Go get it out of the drawer, and then go get the prong collar if your dog just wasn't getting the obedience part of it. And literally, we take it off one dog and put it on another dog, and take it off and put it on. But that's just the way they knew it. But it's super pervasive the way it's still used today. And guys that even haven't used an e-collar before, maybe they're on their 3rd or 4th dog, I'm introducing e-collar to them, showing them how to do it. And they think you're just smoking dogs off it because that's what they learned back in the day. So one of the things I like to talk about is how we try to use the e-collar as not just a brake, but as a gas pedal, which seems to me for the NePoPo system that Bart does is kind of one of his big things. Can you talk about how you got into that system and what are guys missing that aren't doing it for the stuff that you do?
Well, initially, like I was taught that same method years ago. Like when I first, the e-collar and the pinchy were used as a compulsion type tool. Like, and with the introduction of Bart Bellum and his course, it really opened my eyes. And plus, the SF boys really opened my eyes to the effectiveness and how the e-collar and prong collar should be used. We always use it as a negative, and that's not the way it is designed. We now, with our system here, we use it as a positive. You can use it as a negative, as an aversive tool, if there's a behaviour that it is potentially a risk to persons or the dog, and it will create an imminent danger to that dog or person. But how we design and how we integrate the collar into our program, it's all obviously spontaneous learning. You start shaping the dog's behaviour, and then we'll start applying the collar positively. Everyone's sort of run off Bart's system. I think he really opened the eyes of a lot of people in relation to how the collar should be used. The dog wants to work. As soon as the collar's on now, it's nothing to him. It's just it's a shaping tool. It's a motivating tool, and it can be used if the dog is going to be injured or injures someone as an adversive tool. And I think that's the understanding that I have. I personally, with the prong collar, I don't like using that. I use that as an activation tool. It can, like a correction tool. I clip him up and tether him up if the boys are doing a fight through. Just stops him pulling. But it's always on a dead ring. We never really need to use it on a live ring, because the dog is already shaped to behaviour and positively enforced with that e-collar. So, I don't correct with the prong collar, and I introduce that quite late. He wears it, so he associates it as equipment, but it's really never used as a force model. You know what I mean?
That's such a not weird, because that's a lot. I mean, when we get an opportunity to raise dogs, that's what we do too. But in the United States, that is what you just said is such a foreign concept to a lot of even experienced people in the United States. I mean, dudes that have been quote unquote training police dogs for 25, 30 years. What you just said is completely counter to the way that a lot of people were taught and have been taught and continue to train. I mean, and we talked about it when we talked to Pat and Glenn, and I made the joke, like, I learned how to do this because I got tired of getting fucking bit. And I was like, oh, you can just make him do it. Just show it, just make him do it. And no, I don't make them do anything anymore. There's a couple of things that I will use the e-collar for a brake pedal on, but for the most part, like, when I get an opportunity to, it is, self-discovery, and like you just said, shaped to behavior. Unfortunately, that takes time. And with the United States, everything is fucking hurry, 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 hurry. And, those departments expect that dog delivered in 12, 14 weeks. And and on top of that, I don't know what behaviors what the dog has inadvertently been shaped to. So I got to unravel that shit. And so we have to use a little bit of heat sometimes. So I mean, what you just said is, I would consider, like, if you're listening to this and you're an American handler and you're, in your late 20s, early 30s, and, you're on your first dog and you have some dickhead that's my age or Eric's age that's like telling you to fucking yank. Well, he's
old, you mean?
Yeah, I didn't want to say it, but yeah, if she's old, right? Like, he's been around for a while. He got his first dog off the ark. So, and he's like, oh, you need to make him do it. Don't do it. Like, listen to this. We have several other episodes too, where we kind of talk about this, but that comment, as you said that, I was like, holy shit, that's fucking revolutionary. And you're just saying it like, it's kind of like matter of fact, like, oh, we all fucking do this. No, we don't.
Yeah. It's funny because, like, I listened to, I don't know if it was a podcast or Pat Stewart. He gave a little talk on shaping and, creating that active dog. So the dog actually develops behavior on his own accord, and then he puts more value in it. Bart hits on this all the time. And I think I see it now as I constantly do another dog over and over again. obviously males are very high drive, and obviously the concept that Bart has is that that dog is producing on cue or command an activity through heart and soul. Like he does it with heart and soul, and that's basically what we want the dog to do. We don't want him to do it because he's in fear that he's going to get zapped every time that he doesn't do. You know what I mean? So sometimes I understand you have to, with especially working dogs, there needs to be a consequence. But if they're imprinted with that shaping and motivating with the collar, they understand consequence over time. That's my opinion. And again, everyone has their own opinions, and it works for me. It works for the dogs. It works for Mallies especially. But yeah, I just find a system that the dog is happy to have that collar on, and he knows his task, but he can be also shaped without shutting down and still continually be active.
So one of the big issues over here is guys that get into one system where they learn, I guess you'd call it one system, but they learn something early on that was passed to them, and they never evolve, and this is it. This will never move past it. This is what works for them. So having done this for a while, been a regular GP handler, then being a special operations handler there, going through the silver and the gold course, what are you still learning? Like, are you still constantly, are dogs teaching you things? Or there's things that I would imagine going through the silver and gold is still a little bit of a fire hose drinking with Bart, really, getting to understand it fully. So how do you work? Are you still constantly bringing in knowledge to yourself and constantly learning from people?
I think like everything, Eric, if you don't learn or you think you know everything, it's time to get out. Like that's how I look at it. The dog world is constantly evolving. You have to constantly evolve with it. And, that's my thought process. I thought the Bart system was evolutionary for me personally. But again, like what I've learned, every dog has their own personality. Some dogs are very high drive. You got to bring them back a little bit to be able to get what you need out of it. Because again, I do have a timeline, and I need to meet, and that dog needs to meet those milestones within that timeline. So we've got to make sure that the program or the process and the system can be developed or develop that dog to meet the timeline. And I think, sometimes we cheat, we use lures, blah, blah, blah. That's just the way it is. We have to do it because, we don't have years and years to be able to develop these dogs. And then if we do, we then shorten their lifespan as an operational canine. So I think Bart's system of NePoPo set the baseline to be able to give me a structured system. And then I just modify it to be able to suit the dog's personality, like tracking. Some dogs, as you're well aware, Mallies are very frantic. So, like to try and get their head down on track, especially at a young age, it's quite challenging. So you got a high food drive dog, you load the track up, you lay the scent load with food to be able to try and keep that dog down, and then obviously use the marker system to reward. And then he starts to associate that behavior, that wanted behavior, and then he'll continue to do it, and then he increases with heart and soul. You know what I mean? So touching on your point, Eric, I think I constantly evolve with each dog, and each dog's personality changes my training system, but I try to keep the fundamentals there. My processes are the same. It just might start at different times on the dog's development side of it, just due to his maturity or his smarts in relation to learning or picking up capabilities or skill sets.
We interviewed a guy from the Special Warfare Development Group on here that was a handler for a really famous operation. And he said, he was like, when I got over there, he goes, I had to be good at something because everybody over there was a fucking badass with a fucking firearm. And he was like, I was good, but like these dudes are better. I had to find something. Then that's why he became a dog handler. So, you're in, everybody in your unit, like all those guys have to be proficient with a firearm. So, Are you a better shooter or are you a better dog handler?
I try to make it even. I'll probably, some would say, no, better dog handler. I'm not the greatest shooter. I do what I need to do and make sure I do it to standard. Dog handling the same. Some people may say, oh yeah, your dog's lacking this, blah blah blah. Well, yeah, at the end of the day, as long as they do task or do standard, meet standards, and they do what the boys want them to do, and I do what I'm required to do, I think that says it.
What's your favorite weapon over there? What's your favorite firearm?
So we use the 223s as our primary, and the 40 cal as our secondary weapons. Yeah, to be honest, I don't even see. I'm not even a gun nut, to be honest. They're just another tool to support me in my role. So, I get it out of the bag. I make sure it cleans. I make sure it shoots straight, and I make sure I'm good with the drills. And that's about as far as I go with the gun side of it.
Yeah, you're a fucking dog trainer. Yep. Yeah, you gave me the answer that all fucking dog handlers give me. I talk to guys in SF and SEALs and fucking in all the special operations units, and they're like, it's a fucking gun. I'm a dog guy. They're like, I don't know, it's a fucking gun. I don't even have one. Like they're like, a lot of the fucking special operations guys like, I don't even carry a fucking rifle. Like they're like, I got a firearm. They got 9 other dudes with me. I don't need to worry about it. So perfect.
It can be hard to shoot with that dog attached to you.
True story. Yeah. So I think, I mean, this has been a fucking fantastic episode. There's a lot of similarities between what goes on down there and what goes on up here. And you highlighted a lot of the things that I think that personally need to change. Pat asked us a question, what do we need to get on the same page as like an industry as a whole, like across the world? My answer was kind of not vague, but I was just like, we have the same language and some other things. But, you highlighted some on the police side, something that I think we, as in like me and Eric and like the podcast, and we have other podcasts in this country that are kind of advocating for the same thing. And one of our other companies kind of advocates for it too. But you kind of highlighted some things that are super important that I think need to be talked about in the United States. And you guys are doing it out of policy and out of necessity because of the way that your laws are set up. We're not doing it here because people are in a perpetual dick measuring contest. So as far as I can
find
tell,
that a lot. Yeah. I find that a lot with dog developing, handling. It is a bit of a dick measuring comp. But at the end of the day, like everyone has little different systems. As long as you have, with us, I try and make sure the boys have a similar system and that the product does the talking. Like you can, at the end of the day, everyone can talk it up and say, oh, my dog can do this and that. But operationally, if he's on task and he can't do it or he can't locate a fresh hunt from a stolen car or whatever, then, hey, your dog's not on song. Something's wrong there. You got to start, obviously working on it by training or, start integrating the boys more to be able to make sure that dog doesn't go off task because of distraction. So, yeah, that's how we judge our standards.
So I know you said, and we talked before we started recording, that you have a little side hustle, mostly dealing with SF guys and dogs. But do you have an Instagram page that people go see you training dogs or anything like that in?
To be honest, no. I pretty much have one client.
Nice.
Because and that's it. It's simple for me. And then I just stick to them. They support me with development and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, I don't. And plus, I'm obviously developing the dogs for cert too. So, yeah, that's sort of where my business is at. I do a little bit of sideline stuff with helping civilians develop, pups and all that, or if they've got issues with dogs. That high level potentially dog aggression or redirecting on handlers and all that sort of stuff. I do, but I don't charge for that sort of stuff. That's just, I just don't like seeing people going down that wrong path and teaching dogs the wrong thing, and then all of a sudden it just goes to shit. And then, people or kids are getting bitten by these land sharks because they haven't been trained correctly. So, And I know
I kind of wish that I didn't have a social media sometimes. You know, if I didn't have a business, I could easily walk away from it. Would be
yeah.
It is what it is now. So Ted, what about you, man? Where are you located at? Still, guys, real quick. I check this too because I'm fascinated. I'll find someone and they'll message me and say, "Hey, I'm a big fan of the podcast," and I'm like, "Cool, that's awesome." I look and they don't follow me. Follow the podcast. They don't follow you either. It's so. I just find it to be weird. I find it strange, but whatever.
Yeah, so Ted_Summers on Instagram. The podcast has its own thing, working_dog_radio. On Facebook, it's Working Dog Radio. Kennel page is Torchlight Canine for both working or for Instagram and for Facebook. It's spelled with one word, Torchlight. Yeah, so that's where everybody sees what I'm doing every day, which is right now being cold. So and then playing with labs. So, what about you? E?
Van S Canine on Instagram and Van S Canine Academy on Facebook. The Instagram is mostly police dogs. The Facebook is mostly the pet side, almost exclusively the pet side now because I'm posted on there probably 3 times a day, and then we're sharing it and there's all this other stuff to help drive the Facebook algorithm. It actually works. So our phone and emails have been ringing off the hook lately. So, and we have Working Dog Radio on the Patreon. Hey, listen, workingdogradio.com. If you go there, guys, we have some really cool t-shirt designs up there. Some that we haven't really advertised much that you'll like. I think you'll find pretty funny. That you'll like them. A lot of shit that we talk about, we made t-shirts out of it.
So one of the other companies that we also co-own, or however you want to put it, is HRD, which the Rona has totally messed up the first portion this year and the last portion the other. We got some rescheduled. We started a new one with the SWAT integration stuff, which is a lot of what we talked about tonight too. There's a lot of the same themes that are going on in that, the instruction that goes on there, and then the conversation that we had tonight. And that one is March 17th to the 21st in Albany, New York, is that first one of those. But I think that one is filled. I'm not 100% certain. That's a Ray question, but you can hit him up, Ray, at hrdpolicecanine.com, and he'll be able to fill you in. But yeah, I mean, outside of that, man, this has been a fantastic episode, Ben. Like I said, I kind of knew it was going to happen, so I'm glad that we got to hit on all of the, and there was some pleasant surprises too, like raising the puppies. I mean, I figured you guys did something like that, but I didn't realize and how integral that is. And it's something that I've argued for a long time, but like you said, it's a resource question. So yeah. It's definitely, and most departments here, they don't like paying anybody. So they're not real, patient with their own employees, and much less guys like me, like I have vendors. So they're not the patient people in the world. But yeah, Ben, man, this has been an awesome episode. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, Ted. Thanks, Eric, for having us. It's much appreciated. It was an honor to be on your program.